everyone, and welcome to Surviving UX. This is the podcast that is a big old box of tissues when the going gets tough in your UX career. I'm your host, Meg Kramer, and I'm back after ditching Jessamyn last week to have my very first Mother's Day. I spent it covered in spit up. But Jessamyn, you've had quite a week as well. Welcome.
Thank you.
What is the latest with you?
Well, we got COVID this week. So all of us are vaccinated and boosted, and yet somehow anyway, we all got COVID. So I've had quite a week. We're feeling better. We're on the up and up, but this definitely rocked my world in terms of assumptions about my vaccination was going to protect me.
And did you end up working like every day this week?
Yeah, I worked.
Wow.
I felt like I just had a cold. So and I've like had every cold. I've probably had a million colds. I feel like for every cold I've had, I should have like a little tattoo dot, and I could have like a constellation, like literally tattooed on my left arm of every cold or virus. And I was thinking about getting a virus tattoo. I mean, these are all fantasies because I'll never get a tattoo, but if I were to get one, that might be a shape I would consider. But yes, so I definitely worked, and my team was like, yuck. And I coughed into the mic many times, forgetting to mute myself. And so I definitely brought all of that goodness into every call. And I did kind of fall apart in a meeting this week. Got a little emotional and upset, and it was a little bit of a signal to me that maybe I need to take a step back and log off. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting because like COVID, we're all at home working from home because of COVID, but because we're all working from home, you can like work through, like you can maybe
like, hey, I've got COVID, everybody. Yeah, exactly. Like, you're safe, you can still talk to me, but I straight up have COVID. And I told everybody, I thought about hiding it, lying and saying I had a cold, but then I was like, no, I'm just going to let everybody know because I don't want to be a perpetuator of bias and stigma. So I'm going to share. Yes. COVID. Yeah. How about your week?
Well, one thing I thought worth mentioning is I am starting to get geared up to be not on leave anymore, and so lots of anxiety, trepidations. We've got some ideas for what to do about that in relation to the podcast, or at least I do. So we might get deep into some of those anxieties and fears at a later date. But one thing is that I was recently reminded that, the place you leave once you go on leave is really not going to be the place you go back to. Something is going to change. There's going to be a reorg. People are going to leave. People are going to come. Right. Your boss might not be the boss you had before. And we talked about this on the maternity leave podcast that we had. But it really hit home for me recently because that, of course, happened to me. So I will be going back to a different managerial situation than I left.
Wow.
So we will see how that goes.
Right. I mean, I feel like it's always a reminder every time someone leaves my team or there's a change, new people coming in. It's like, wow, there's constant change. Nothing's ever going to stay the same for long, but to come back to a different manager, that's definitely tough. I think you're going to have to like really feel them out and see, is this an ally, or are they going to be suspicious of me? Are they going to be, watching me or judging me? Are they going to be family friendly or not? Maybe they'd never heard of families before. So yeah.
Well, let's hope that's not the case for me, for sure. Gosh. Well, today we have another guest with us. We're just having this amazing streak of folks willing to chat with us on our podcast and bring different perspectives and insights to share with us about how they've survived UX. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. Our guest today is Jill Christ, and Jill happened to be one of the very first proper UX researchers I ever saw back in the day, back when we started, or back when I started out in this career. And watching her do usability interviews and setting up studies, set an incredibly high bar in my mind of what a UX researcher does and is and how they act. And ever since then, I think I've been comparing everybody that I know in this field to Jill. And after working at Citrix and lynda.com before it was LinkedIn Learning and Facebook before it was Meta, Jill is now an independent UX consultant with her own business, and she helps early to mid-stage startups understand their customers in creative ways. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. And thank you. That was a very sweet, very nice intro.
It feels like, I don't want to age us, but it feels like ages ago that we did work together, but it was such a sweet time. And it was such a nice, our whole group of people that I started out with, it was such a great way to get into this field with folks like yourself.
It was, yes, I completely agree. It was such a nice first experience.
And actually, this isn't a question I have for you, but it just came to mind was, I think you did your program at UCLA, right? Did you always want to go into UX, or were you doing that program and then you just kind of came into UX? Because I think it's an information science program.
Yes, yeah, a library and information science program with an emphasis in informatics. But the program was much more focused on library science. And then just a few of us were kind of venturing into user experience. But even from before starting the program, once I knew people were graduating from it, going into UX, I was like, I really want to do this. So
that's so cool.
What do you think lured you into it?
Well, I think at the time I really wanted something like creative and fast-paced, and I had been working in libraries for a little while, like when I was in college and then after college, and it's a wonderful place to work. But I was hungry for something in the tech industry, and just kind of wanting something fast. Now that it's 15 years later, I'm like, okay, that was me 15 years ago. Now I'm like slowing down a little bit and wanting a little bit more sustainable pace. And but yeah, I think that's what initially attracted me to it, and that just learning that companies needed help understanding their users, like that boggled my mind. Like, oh, I can help with that.
Totally fascinating. I think it's awesome that there's like an intersection between that library science, information architecture, and UX. I think that's been one of the most interesting intersections for like the academic backgrounds. People come to UX from all kinds of different backgrounds, but consistently I would say like you do see that library science degree as a potential requirement or a possible qualification for UX jobs, which is so super interesting because it's something that predates UX, by decades, if not longer.
It's very true. I remember taking classes in how people seek information, whether it's through books or through like information systems. And I think even the projects now that I work on that I find that I'm most like rooted to or connected to are the ones where I'm like helping with a search interface or like a website, helping people like get their questions answered. For some reason, it just brings me back to those library roots.
That's very cool.
So you were saying the big companies you were at, fast-paced life, and then you decided to leave it all behind, start your own business. For better or worse, there's that pace. Is there anything else you don't miss about that former life? Any fun stories or things like that?
I think I don't miss the meeting fatigue, the meeting overload. I remember towards the end of my time at my last company, my calendar was just out of control, and I was so fatigued by it. It was so hard to like really push back. And I was like triple booked sometimes on meetings and constantly having to decide where I was going to devote my time, and constantly feeling guilty about, what team whose meeting I wasn't going to. And I remember it got so bad that at one point I like decided to print out my calendar and cut like little cards of each meeting that I had, and do like a card sort of which meetings were most important or going to bring the most impact, which ones I could have the most impact on, which ones maybe I'm not having as much impact on. So this could like facilitate a conversation with my manager, and that it seemed to kind of help.
That's really smart. That's super smart. You're prioritizing,
right? And some of the meetings I could kind of dial back what cadence I went to, all these strategies to try to manage the meeting overload. And so then when I went independent, like I just had a lot more control over how much I take on and don't take on.
Do you triple book yourself now?
No, definitely not. But I do miss the ritual of going to some meetings, like I don't have like standing meetings that I go to, like a stand up, like there was something really nice about that, like connecting with people at the beginning of the day, or having like a biweekly one-on-one with your manager. Like you can stay up to date with people and ask them about how things are going from the last meeting, like, that's something that's, I didn't realize I would miss that, but yeah, that's a nice part about meetings. It's just, it can be a lot.
Yeah. I think about like being like you said, like triple booked, or people who I work with who have many more meetings than I do, and them, always having to basically decide between meetings. And it's like, how did schedules get to be this way? I guess it's because anybody can schedule a meeting with an infinite number of people. And so the likelihood that you're invited to a meeting at the same time as another meeting that somebody else invited you is very, very possible. But it feels like it shouldn't be, like, especially with the advent of visibility into people's calendars, like it shouldn't really be that way, but people do it anyway. So
I feel like meeting invites are like kids' birthday parties, where you're like, well, you don't want so-and-so to feel left out, so we better include them too. And then you end up, over inviting. And I feel like once meetings get too big, they become less effective, because so many people just have to sit there quietly and they can't really have a conversation. And my biggest pet peeve recently has been, I'll join a call and everyone's sitting there in silence and no one takes the lead. And it's like,
who scheduled that meeting?
Exactly. Who the hell scheduled this meeting? And if they're not here yet, can someone else get us started? Or is there anything we can do to get started? Because it's going to go over. And then they're going to be like, can you stay an extra 5 minutes? And I feel like, somebody, like, there should be some kind of meeting etiquette that's like, after 3 minutes, like if someone hasn't spoken up yet, like the person who's just the bravest should just take over, please, and just start. Or just say, we're going to cancel this and give everybody the time back. But sitting on mute with a group of 18 people, I can't believe how many times I've done it recently.
Wow.
It's insane.
Oh, yeah.
Well, another topic we wanted to pester you about, Jill, is about talking business. So do you think UX folks are good at, like business speak, talking to people in the business side of the business? What do you think?
I don't think we are particularly good at this. I think I feel like it's like two different languages. Like we're really, really good at our language of, advocating for the users and speaking about their experience, or at least for me, I've felt like this for a long time, that I'm very good at telling the user's story, but then it's harder for me to like put on that translator hat and translate that into something that is where I can actually talk to like a business executive about about it, or even understand what the business executives are talking about. In some cases, like I can think of times when I was sitting in business meetings with business executives and learning about our strategy for a new feature or product launch, and really not understanding what this strategy was all about, and or how we're going to execute on it, just because it was filled with a lot of acronyms that it wasn't, I guess I didn't learn about in school, or it didn't stick in my brain as well as, the user experience language does, and so, I remember thinking like, okay, I really need to study these like pre-read business strategy documents that get sent out ahead of time before these meetings. And I would spend a lot of time with them, and still like, I have tons of questions that were like clarifying questions that weren't the best kind of questions to ask in those meetings, you know?
I get the feeling that like when you do ask those questions, either people feel like undermined and they get kind of defensive, or like you ask those questions and then like they're like, that's not what the time in this meeting is supposed to be spent for, and you're just like, but or you come off as like maybe not feeling like I'm as educated or caught up, and I don't want to like, I think that's my biggest thing, is like I want to pretend that I always know what's going on, when really I should probably be asking a million questions.
See, I'm gonna say this, Jill, like I am gonna say a big nah, because you should be asking questions. Any document that you read that isn't readable to a somewhat educated person, I feel like, first of all, acronyms should be spelled out, first instance. Like that's just a law of the land.
So
if
true.
you're using an acronym document, spell the damn thing out for the rest of us, because nobody knows all the jargon. There's nothing worse than being on a call with 18 people muted, and then you get into it, and then maybe the whole time you're on the call, maybe 4 or 5 people even speak up with comments, questions. So just by participating in the meeting, to me, you're adding value. Like
that's very true.
Even with just the dumbest question in the world, because to me that sends a signal to the doc's author that they haven't written for their audience. You're the audience, right. You're in that call, right? You're consuming that document. They invited you there. They want your feedback. If you can't understand and make heads or tails,
they could easily just not invite me next time.
Maybe you've gotten dropped off those meetings. Hey, one less meeting on your calendar.
One less, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So what did you do? What did you do, Jill? Like, how'd you go about learning about this stuff?
I totally fumbled my way through, like asking all these awkward questions, or setting up one-on-ones with the PM who was presenting so I could ask the questions kind of offline. I think I remember trying that for a little while. I remember what did seem to help or work was, it was just like a little baby step, but sometimes I would notice that something we were going to launch was in conflict with something we learned in our research. Like someone else on my team had found something out that was like, oh, this doesn't align right. And so I remember talking with my manager about this, and we thought, okay, maybe we should do like a pre-mortem with this PM or with this team to say like, okay, what could happen if we do launch this thing?
Hey, wait, what is a pre-mortem?
Yeah, I love that term.
The opposite, I guess.
Before
a post-mortem, like
I've never done a post-mortem. Like I kind of know vaguely what that means, but spell it out for us.
I think the post-mortem is like kind of like a retrospective, like after everything happened, like let's hash out what didn't go so well, or what did go well. But a pre-mortem would be like doing your retrospective before the thing launches, if you have decided to launch it in the way that it was implemented, and kind of like trying to predict what could go wrong, what could be the implications, because you never know for certain. We always want to have as much certainty as possible to know this thing is going to be a great success. This thing will not cause any harm to anyone. But in some cases, we might in research learn there may be some people in the world that may not like this thing, or we need to be really careful about how we talk about this thing, or whatever it might be. Maybe it'll
really
get picked
prudent, because you think about how launches go, and a lot of times you're launching something very bare bones where you're not meeting every use case, you're not meeting every need, you're not shipping every bell and whistle, and you're hoping that your V1 is just enough to get people started. And then later you can launch all the other things you really needed to do, but you didn't have time for. So I think it's really smart to like think about that and like, well, what are the risks of shipping it this way? Because everyone likes to pat themselves on the back for being super agile.
Right. Right. Getting it out the door in the short term can be hard to get people to think in the longer term, which is something that I think, especially higher level executives, that's what's on their mind, is what are we going to be doing like a year or two from now? I think the teams tended to think more in the 6-month time frame or 3-month time frame. So yeah, it was a little baby step for me to start trying to kind of influence the conversation, I guess, in these business meetings. But that wasn't the only time I struggled with it. After I left and left the company, and I was going to start my consulting practice, I took a few months to help my husband with he was working on a startup. And I noticed as he was trying to like sell his app, I had such a hard time like in those conversations too, like those customer facing conversations where you really have to make the business case for his app. It was a very, very technical Salesforce kind of app. And I was like, wow, like I have a long, like, what's it called? Like, there's a big learning curve for me here, like to really like be able to speak the language that these customers need me to speak. But I think
if you're doing user research, it's like the opposite of sales. It's like you're on the other end of the spectrum.
Very true.
You're trying to learn and listen and hear, and then not tell them what they should be doing, but like asking them what they want. It's such a different conversation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're trying to be fully present with them and listen to them talk about what they're struggling with. And versus,
just Jessamyn said earlier, we meet so many people who come to UX from so many different backgrounds, but I cannot think of one person I've ever met who's come to UX from having their MBA. Can you guys?
Right. I did work with one person, who did have an MBA, but he worked in user experience at my last company. But he what helped, I think it helped him the most with was he was working on like the business side of the company, like on the B2B side. And so having that domain expertise really helped him like hit the ground running. But yeah, I think it's very, very uncommon.
I wonder if it's worth it. I wonder if it's worth getting more formal training and stuff like that. Like, would it make us more, I don't know,
MBAs are expensive, Meg. Have you ever looked at one of those programs? I mean, I have, and I was like, oh man, let me get a book or something, because this is wild. It's really pricey. And that's because they promise you that you're going to become a hotshot executive at some big Fortune 500 company, and you're going to be living the life. I mean, MBA programs, UX programs, I'm not even going to get started on that, but I mean, MBA programs really promise people success, and so they are pricey.
Well, then, because we don't have a lot of success in UX, so we're not gonna.
I don't want that. They're not going to be success. I want a life.
There is a concept or framework that was born from business school that I now use a ton in my work, because it's very, very similar to what we do in UX anyway. And that's the jobs to be done theory or framework. Or
Jim Kalbach.
Yes, exactly. I learned it from Bob Molesta from the Rewired group. Did like, and he has like his own style of how to, I guess, implement the methodology side, but all the theory is the same. It's all based on the premise that people don't shop for products. They hire a product to do a job for them, and they fire products that don't do a good job for them. And I found that like has been a really nice metaphor to use when I'm in these business conversations with founders or executives. That seems to like hit home much better than any other attempt at the sort of same conversation, like a needs finding type of study that I've done. If I can put it in terms of like what's the job they're trying to get done, at least right now, that seems to be working pretty well.
That's cool.
What's not working? I'm curious. That's like what's failed miserably.
Okay, so this is a good question, because I sort of learned pretty quickly when I started consulting and doing a lot more jobs to be done research that it's one thing to kind of deliver the insights of like, here are the jobs that your customers need to get done, or they want to get done. This is what they're hiring your product to do. And it's another thing to like help them figure out what to do like next with it, like really turn that into their like a strategy like for them, like figure out the right what they should do with this basically. I had like this big wake up call moment with some clients who loved the research, but by the end of the project, they were like, we loved it, but nothing has really changed, you know? And I thought like, I'm not really doing anything different than what I had been doing internally when I worked in-house. And part of me thought that like, gosh, like I don't have the luxury anymore of working alongside a designer or a PM or a product marketing manager to brainstorm, like, what should this strategy be coming out of this? Like, I was really good at telling the story of the research and coming up with some like high level recommendations, but really failing on kind of getting, especially a startup that may not have a designer hired yet, or someone that can own the product marketing side yet. And so I realized like I might need to skill up a little bit on kind of getting them going in the right direction, and take my deliverables a bit beyond just the story. The story is really important, but I started to realize like they need a little bit more from me to kind of translate this into something they can start doing right away, and like give them a good like timeline and check in with them on like what's blocking you on getting this off the ground.
I think next time one of your like recommendations without doing any research can be hire some UX folks. Because I feel like I was just talking to somebody the other day who was like talking to me about his new business venture that he was like shepherding or whatever. And he was like, oh, we're just hiring sales right now, like for the startup. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like we're never like UX is never kind of like first in the door, you know, we're kind of an afterthought that comes in maybe like a year or two down the line when there's a little bit more money. And like, I get it, you know, you can't pay for, you know, you like, he's like, yeah, I need salespeople. I need to make money off this product. So, you know, his logic is sound. But yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could be in the door first? Then we wouldn't be dealing with all of this crap that's like all this stuff that gets built without thinking through how to build it right the first time.
Oh, so true.
Do you enjoy telling people what to do, Jill? Like, are you like, all right, you guys, this is what we're gonna do, this and this, or is that hard?
I think I've enjoyed it more as a consultant than when I was in-house. And when I was in-house, I kind of felt like, I think I fell into the trap of I'm part of the team and I got to build like good relationships with people. And then also like, I don't want them to hate me and write a bad review about me, you know? And so I would sugarcoat things a little bit. But as a consultant, I feel more empowered. I feel more like that they're hiring me to give kind of an outside perspective.
That sounds very freeing, actually.
Yeah.
How do you,
that's a good question.
If you don't sugarcoat it anymore, how do you break the bad news when you have bad news?
Let's see. I think something that does sort of work is if you really understand the narrative that the team or the client is trying to tell about their product, and then you can kind of juxtapose that with, but actually what we learned in the research was this and this. If you can like acknowledge and almost mirror what the client thinks and like, yeah, I guess what their ongoing story is, and then show how that's different than what users are thinking, then it's like an easier pill to swallow rather than coming up, because I have tried to just say what the users want without really acknowledging at all what the teams think that the users want. And that doesn't seem to go as well without that acknowledgement.
So it's kind of like, what I hear you saying is this.
Yes.
And then bring in like the but what we're hearing from customers is this, and show them that dichotomy. Interesting. Well, we're just about out of time here. Is there any topic that you were just dying to mention or share with our listeners about how you've survived UX?
There was one other thing about, I think, that I learned when I was helping my husband with his app that I wanted to share. That was another kind of big wake-up call for me as a UX professional. I think when I started working with him, I really believed that UX was almost like the thing that was going to save him, like save the company or was going to make it a success, you know. And in the beginning, it was like so fun to work with him on like smoothing out the onboarding experience and like do user tests and see his eyes light up as he watched people like use the app that he built, you know, with his own hands. And it was just a really cool moment to have with my husband, like this honeymoon phase almost. But then, like I think I mentioned earlier, when it came to what he, like at a certain point after the onboarding experience was cleaned up and we got it to a place that was like intuitive, I realized that it was like, I kept wanting to do more UX type stuff, like more research. Like I even tried to do a jobs to be done study for him. And we started having these like arguments about like, is this really the right thing to be doing right now? At first I thought like, oh, he's like a typical PM, like doesn't want to do any research right now. And but then I think reflecting back now, I've realized that there's so many different roles that make a company like fly, you know, like make it successful. And what he needed was someone to help with like demoing the app and answering questions that customers had about the technical parts of how the app was implemented. And those were things like I didn't have the language for at the time. And it was a steep learning curve with learning the Salesforce ecosystem. And he needed that so that he could get back to building the app, because that was the part of his business that he really loved doing. And so I guess the big lesson that I learned at the time was that as I had this like UX bias almost, like that UX was going to come in and save the day. And it was really nice in the beginning, but it wasn't the only thing. We needed like more people on the team, you know?
Yeah, Totally. No, that's really interesting, and probably is a really good insight even when you're at a company that has all of those players, that like
Yes.
maybe you're missing bringing in the player, like the right type of person to the project, because they're just like missing. But and yeah, like UX might not save the day. It might not be the great the great band-aid or you know, the great
there might be certain
medicine that
points,
fixes everything.
At least in a startup situation, it's a team effort. Like we all bring different perspectives to the table.
Well, Jill, this has been super interesting and insightful. We don't have a ton of time left, but we do sometimes like to ask questions of our guests about what their things that are top of mind for them. So is there an app or experience that you're using these days that you think is not the worst?
Lately I've been trying a lot of the meditation apps, like the Calm app and the like the Insight Timer app. And I like different aspects of different ones. The Insight Timer one, I love their startup, like the loading experience. They load up as the app is loading. You get like this nice quote that you can ponder about, and I'm such a sucker for that.
Oh, it's a nice use of waiting time.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, Balsamiq has something like that too, but it usually flashes so fast that I'm always like, wait, what did that say? And then it's gone. So as long as it stays on the screen for more than like an eighth of a second, that would be good.
Maybe it's artificially delayed in the app you were talking about, Jill. Like it's up there for longer,
long enough to read it.
Yeah.
Balsamiq, if you're listening, some of us aren't fast.
All right, well, that wraps up this episode for us here. Thank you so much, Jill, for spending the time with us and for sharing your unique perspective. I think maybe you were our first person who is not entrenched at a company currently, who came on the podcast to tell us your thoughts. And for all you listeners out there, if you need advice or sympathy for your UX career, please feel free to write to us at survivingux@gmail.com, and we will see you next time. Surviving UX is hosted and edited by Jessamyn Edwards and Meg Kramer. Our theme music is, among other things, the on-hold music for Cisco phones, Opus No. 1 by Tim Carlton and Derek Deal. Our thanks to Jill Christ for not being triple booked so that she could join us today. We hope that you have fewer meetings this week, and we'll be back to listen in to the next episode of Surviving UX.